Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, New York City. Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams, celebrating 6 incredible years on air and marking episode 245. Here's to another exciting one. It's truly a pleasure spending this time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for tuning in every Saturday night and for engaging with me on social media. That connection is what makes all of this worthwhile. Please continue to follow me at Xen Sams. That's Xen with an X, not a Z. And remember, all episodes stream Sundays at 2 p.m. directly on our YouTube channel and on Your Home TV at mox.yourhometv.com. Welcome back to A Moment of Xen, where alongside our experts on the microphone, we explore film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, cannabis, fintech, health, and yes, everything in between, always through the lens of the millennial mom's perspective. Today's lineup fuels the body, the mind, and the heart. In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, we pay homage to the women who built modern media, the storytellers who weren't just behind the camera, but shaping what America saw and felt. From broadcast to broadband, we look at a female producer's front row seat to media's evolution. We're joined by Amy Rosenblum, founder of WANNABEONTV. She's an Emmy Award-winning producer, executive, and media trailblazer whose fingerprints are on some of the most defining moments in daytime television. In CO2 Lifts Going Deep Express segment, Dr. Grant Stevens, a board-certified plastic surgeon and founder of Marina Plastic Surgery, Marina Med Spa, and Sun Valley Aesthetics, breaks down how the CO2 Lift Pro treatment works and how the CO2 Lift V is helping both men and women enhance their intimate wellness. In the Right Brain segment, we're joined by Dr. Robert Melillo, world-renowned expert in brain development, alongside his daughter Ellis Melillo, content creator, singer-songwriter, and the emotional voice of the Right Brain podcast. Today we cover When High-Functioning Kids Break, a father-daughter conversation about OCD, anxiety, and the brain's hidden imbalances. In the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands and Crunchy, where clean living meets conscious beauty, today I'm especially proud to spotlight Crunchy's unwavering commitment to compassion. They're fully Leaping Bunny certified, meaning absolutely no animal testing at any point in their formulation or manufacturing. From ingredients to brushes, every product reflects their promise: high-performance beauty that never compromises on ethics. In the Elevated Experiences segment brought to you by MTK Group New York Travel Club, we're featuring Camila Zevallos, the MVP travel designer at Classic Travel, and Lance Stamps, the vice president of marketing at Classic Travel. We're diving straight into the heart of white glove wanderlust, the new rules of elevated travel in 2026, because luxury travel has officially evolved. We're chatting where the world's wealthiest are going and the expert fixers behind those once-in-a-lifetime itineraries. In the Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Cespera, we're joined by Dr. Jane Yu, a Korean-American dual board-certified cosmetic dermatologist and Mohs surgeon. We're chatting the new science of pigment correction and why melasma has met its match. Stay tuned for the Hydration with Heart segment, joined by Amy Rosenblum, Emmy Award-winning producer, executive, and media trailblazer. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
In business and in life, there's always an upside. Finding it is often the challenge. Having a mindset that looks for it and embraces problems as opportunities is the key to thriving. Finding the Upside with Maria de Lorenzo Reyes explores the transformative power of optimism, featuring visionary business owners, influential leaders, and inspiring everyday people. Tune in and see how they navigate changing conditions with optimism and innovation. Watch the special series One Tough Chick, highlighting resilient and powerful women, streaming on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Xen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Today's Hydration with Heart segment is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, and it's a homage to the women who have built modern media, the storytellers who weren't just behind the camera, but shaping what America saw and felt. My guest today is one of those visionaries, Amy Rosenblum, founder of WANNABEONTV. She's an Emmy Award-winning producer, an executive and media trailblazer whose fingerprints are on some of the most defining moments in daytime television. From CBS News and The Joan Rivers Show to Maury and NBC's Today Show, Amy's career bridges every era, from analog broadcast to broadband streaming. And as we trace the evolution of media through her lens, we're going to explore what's been gained, what's been lost, and what it takes to remain relevant when the entire world becomes the audience. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So, Amy, you began when producing the broadcast landscape was in its prime back in 1984.
Back in the Stone Age, we were like hitting rocks.
Right. There were just 3 major networks. There was ABC, CBS, and NBC, and the average viewer watched over 7 hours of TV per day. Now, every minute of programming was in fact deliberate. You know this. Edited on tape, timed to the second, and really consumed collectively. There was no skip button, no algorithm, just appointment television. So what was it like producing in that world? And what unique challenges do you face as one of the few women in the control room?
Okay, well, first of all, I started, I think, like 81. I started at Good Morning America. And then my on-air talent, Pat Collins, who was the arts and entertainment editor, got fired. So I quit, which is like at 21 years old. You know, I'm going to be loyal. And the executive producers said, come work with me. I'm starting a new show called CBS This Morning with Diane Sawyer. So I went there and I spent 7 years in live television broadcast and became a full producer at CBS News. And it was also very hard. They called me a video kitten at CBS. That's when I first realized about women. Like, I didn't get it that it was going to be like that. It was like I sat in a newsroom with men who were smoking pipes and cigars, and I was all of like 22, 23 years old, and I was a booker. And these men were like hardcore CBS people, CBS News, when it was like really like the Tiffany station. And I was a booker, which I thought was like so exciting, but I was the only female that sat at a table, a big long table with a bunch of men, and the people there like didn't want things to change.
It's very much an old boys club, what
Yes,
you're
it was.
describing.
It always was. I was minimized. I was like this young girl, like one guy who was like an executive there once said, "Hey, you got nice legs for a midget," because I'm like 5'1".
Oh, God.
And I mean, no one could get away with that now.
Yeah, no.
And so I was sent to Germany to work on the hostage crisis. And like I said, I used my like inner feelings. And like I said, I'm telling you, they're not going to come to the Hilton at Frankfurt Airport. I think the hostage families are going to come to this very expensive hotel, which is right where the army base was that we were coming out of in Wiesbaden. So I went over to this very expensive hotel and I walked in and I said, no man would do this. Hi, I'm a PR agent with like TWA, and I just need to know, are the hostage families are coming here, right? And the woman said, yes. You know, it was the old days where like you just could get away with much more. So I left notes underneath each one of the doors. And I said, so they're definitely coming here. They're not going to the Frankfurt airport. No. So I called the men that were in charge and I said, listen to me. Bring the Dan Rather here. Bring the camera crews here. The hostage families are coming to this hotel, not to the airport. Sure enough, they said, if you, Amy, are wrong, you're going to get fired. And you're going to look like a schmuck because Dan Rather is coming there. Sure enough, Dan Rather came. They brought the cameras, and the bus rolled in, like the Trailsway bus.
Man.
Came in with all the families, and it was like, okay, you know what? I knew. I just went with my female gut instinct that I knew what I was doing. So, but look, what I wanted to say was, I was a video kitten. I was constantly proving myself. I always felt like I was. People could never say that I wasn't a good producer.
Right.
But when I went to Joan Rivers and I worked with a female, it was so different because look at her. I mean, Joan was always reinventing herself. It was a fantastic experience.
Okay, I want to touch on Joan. This is a good topic. So I want to build that on the women of daytime. So you were part of a rare sisterhood of female producers who really helped architect daytime talk. That's without a doubt.
Right.
And that's a format really that if you look at it now, it's dismissed as light, but it did drive some of the highest engagement in TV history, right? So at one point, shows like Sally Jesse Raphael or the Joan Rivers show that you're referring to, they reached millions of daily viewers. And when you look at that in contrast, that outpaces many primetime slots.
Oh, God.
But let's talk about beyond ratings, because these shows gave a voice to women's stories. How did you approach producing women-led talk shows during a time when female hosts were really expected to smile through controversy? And how did that era, do you think, redefine authenticity in today's media?
I just think that women think differently than men. I mean, when I was, at CBS News, it was such a boys' club, like pipe-smoking, cigar, and they called me Video Kitten. But when I went to work with Joan, she, loved me from the day we met. We bonded. And she trusts me, and she wanted me to be the executive producer. And I said, I'm not ready. I'm afraid. She goes, Amy, you can do it. Are you kidding me? And I was like, I don't want to ruin the show. And in retrospect, I wasn't ready to be executive producer, but she had such faith, and she saw that I had the gut instincts of what women wanted to watch. When I went to Sally, which was the next show, and I executive produced Sally Jesse Raphael in the good old days for 7 years. My first show when I got there, and we didn't really talk about ratings. I mean, I was a kid at CBS News, and it's even at Joan Rivers, the show did okay. It didn't do great, but Sally was a 1 hour format. I had never done a 1 hour format.
Yeah.
And I did my first show. It was a reunion show. Remember in the old days when people didn't know how to find relatives, and we had one company that would find families that they hadn't seen in, 25 years. And I got back to my desk the next morning, and my friend Barry Posnick left me a message on my desk. Oh my God, congratulations. Your show got a 7.2 with a 25 share. And I'm like, is that good? A 25 share is unheard of now. This was at 9 a.m. on NBC in New York. I think the show was on at 10 a.m. 25 share over a reunion show. And it continued. And every day you would wait for the ratings to come in. And they were crazy. I mean, if you got under a 7, it was a bad number. And this is morning television.
Wow.
And the thing, so what happened was I ended up becoming the executive producer at Sally, and the show became more controversial. But it really was the beginning of the real reality TV.
Now I want to move on from broadcast to broadband. So today, the entire ecosystem, Amy, has shifted. It's what we've been saying. When you look at the Reuters Institute 2025 Digital News Report, they have over 75% of U.S. adults now get their news through a mix of social media and video clips rather than traditional networks, right?
Right.
And the production cycle that once took weeks now happens in minutes by individuals with ring lights and smartphones instead of studios and control rooms. So do you view this evolution as a democratization of storytelling, if you will, where everyone can be a broadcaster, or do you feel as the dilution of professional journalism and production craft that people like you have helped build, it's kind of not so much the norm these days?
Well, I wouldn't give up what I went through and had and what I learned, and being on the studio floor and being with people and meeting people for anything.
Right.
I think that people that are just going out don't have the grit of what I went through and what I learned, and what people that were in the industry of daytime television learned. I mean, you can't just turn on a light and feel what we felt for these people. I had all these experiences at the Maury show also, that people's lives were changed. And I just think putting up a ring light or whatever, I mean, everybody calls themselves an expert. It's like a life coach. I mean,
yeah.
What makes you a life coach? And I always say to people, they're not going to book you if just saying you're a life coach. I mean, you really have to live it, to understand it and have gone through the emotions of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now let's talk about the women aspect, because women in media then and now is very different. When you entered television, fewer than 15% of producers and executives were women, and you were one of them.
Right.
So that number hovers near 38%. But women over 50 remain critically underrepresented, both on camera and in leadership. And that's reported by the USC Annenberg's Inclusion Initiative. So these are reports that we're not just coming up with these numbers. But despite being the most experienced demographic, women in media over 50 are often labeled, quote unquote, past their prime, even as their male counterparts age into what you would say authority. So what's your message to women navigating visibility later in life?
I mean, it's very hard. I mean, it is really, really hard. You get to a point where I was the youngest, Video Kitten, to being the oldest. When I was at the Today Show, I felt it was a boys' club in a major way. And I was the one who created Hoda and Kathy Lee. I mean, Hoda they told me I was going to do the 10 o'clock hour. Amy do the 10 o'clock hour after I'd done the 8 o'clock hour. And they said, we're going to have Natalie, Al, la, 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 la. And I said, wait a minute, it's the same show. I really like this woman, Hoda Kotb. She's on Dateline now. And they were like, no, I don't see it. No, I don't really think she's that good. I said, I'm begging you. I did daytime television, Joan, Sally Morey for over 17 years. They will love Hoda Kotb, I'm telling you. So they said, okay, we'll put her on. But if you're wrong, you're going to get fired. Thank you. So I said to Hoda, let's go to this place, Michael's, and I took her to Jennifer Miller to get jewelry, and we got her hair done, and then we went to lunch. And I was sitting at lunch, and Kathy Lee Gifford was at the next table, and I said, that's your co-host. Let's go over to her.
I love
but
that.
It was a hard battle for me. I was looked down upon because I had worked in daytime television.
Yeah.
Even though I worked at CBS News, everyone looked at me as like the daytime producer.
Well, women like you are proof that expertise is really the currency of relevance, because when you talk about legacy and the future of storytelling, you've lived through every pivot point from 3 networks to thousands of creators, and yet storytelling still drives connection and emotion and change. And we're now entering an era where AI-driven production and synthetic media are really, beginning to merge with traditional formats. I mean, the World Advertising Research Center predicts that like 90% of online content could be AI generated by 2030. That's just like, a few years away. That raises a lot of questions about what's authentic and what's human. So, Amy, as a lifelong storyteller, what do you believe must remain sacred in media as we enter this next chapter of automation? And what advice would you give to the next generation of female producers?
I think that you have to think with your heart and have experiences and have grit, because AI doesn't have feelings and it doesn't have experiences. It's just moving in a different direction. So don't lose who you are. Storytelling is the most important thing. AI doesn't have feelings. They don't have experiences. They didn't go to set the hostages free. They don't have those experiences or any experiences that you're going to have now working in television or working in journalism. Just hold on to your stories and have heart.
That's profound and very grounding, because technology, you're right, can replicate tone but not truth. And your words are reminding me that while algorithms might predict behavior, they can't produce meaning. And that's really at the heart of it all, And now I want to talk about one more thing. You have remained relevant throughout your entire career. You are a native New Yorker. You live right here in the heart of it all. You are, cut from a different type of cloth and pretty quick-witted and sassy. Talk to me about how you reinvented yourself when you left daytime television and went off to seek to be the founder of WANNABEONTV.
Well, I want to tell you a very, very interesting story, and I think that the listeners will like this. Joan Rivers came to pick me up at the Today Show the day I got let go, fired, whatever you want to call it. And she said, get in. I'm going to tell you what I tell Melissa. Shed the skin and move on. There's another life for you. And she was really right. And she was doing a one-woman show in California. And she was one of a kind. She took me out there. She made me one of the producers of the show and showed me that there was other life. And she was like, Amy, this is not the end. There was a reason for that. And there was. And I ended up getting another show in New York called New York Live. And it was a different name. And I changed it to New York Live. It was like a mini 10 o'clock hour on NBC in New York local. And then one day I just said, you know what? I don't want to do this. It's very hard to go from what I was doing to this. I'm going to start my own company called So You Want to Be on TV. Because listen, Jill Martin was my assistant, who many of you know from the Today Show. I found Hoda. Margaret Joseph from the New Jersey Housewives, I found her. And I said, you know what? I know what people are good on TV. I'm going to help other people. And I've always mentored young women and older women. I love to help women. And that's what basically I felt having my own company would do. So if you want to be on TV, or you just want to have a better presence and feel more confident in a meeting or whatever, that's what my company does. And I took everything I learned in daytime television, and I'm putting it into the company that I have now.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's really, you took something and your lifelong dream, your work, your everything that your heart and soul that you poured in, and you turned it into a great business now helping others. That's coming full circle.
Someone wrote to me this morning, someone who's actually friends with my kids, my 30-something-year-old kids, and said, I met so-and-so last night, and she said you mentored so many women, and I'm really glad that'll be my legacy, that I helped women, because a lot of women don't do that, and men
Not
especially.
not in this world, right?
So I'm very proud if that's my reputation, that I mentored people, and I want to continue doing it. I love helping people. I love helping women.
Okay,
It's
now
not easy.
well, before we sign off, tell me about the Hulu documentary.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna be. I taped it, a Hulu documentary about pop culture and daytime talk, and I think it's airing the first quarter of 26, whatever that is.
Beautiful. What's it called?
I don't know.
Well, I guess if they follow you, they're going to
Well,
get
it's
to
not
figure
just
it out.
me. It's Sally's in it, Maury's in it. Bert Dubrow, who was also with EP, he created Jerry and Sally in the beginning. So it's a lot about how it went from like quiet television to like controversial talk.
Wow. Well, we are officially out of time, but we could continue on another segment. It was so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you.
What an extraordinary journey through truly time, truth, and television. I mean, from broadcast to broadband, you've shown that platforms might evolve, but the purpose of storytelling and to connect and to reflect and to heal, truly that remains timeless. So thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you. It was a great experience here. Thank you.
And to our listeners, let Amy's story be your reminder that authenticity is truly ageless, relevance is earned, and reinvention, well, that's the power. And you can follow Amy directly on the gram at Amy Rosenblum TV, and you can learn more about her legacy at WANNABEONTV.com. And of course, today's Hydration with Heart segment was brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, hydration with purpose, because staying refreshed isn't just about what you drink, it's about who inspires you to keep growing. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com. Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. And today's Right Brain segment is one that every parent, educator, and mental health advocate needs to hear. Our headliner, When a High-Functioning Child Breaks. A father-daughter conversation about OCD, anxiety, and the brain's hidden imbalances. Today, I'm joined by two very special guests, co-contributor Dr. Robert Melillo, world-renowned expert in brain development, founder of the Melillo Centers, author of Disconnected Kids, and co-host of the Right Brain podcast. Joined by his daughter, Ellis Melillo, researcher, educator, content creator, singer-songwriter, and the emotional voice of the Right Brain movement. Together, they've created a powerful new platform blending science, vulnerability, and lived experience. Parents, here's a statistic that stopped me in my tracks. Nearly 1 in 3 high-functioning adolescents report anxiety or depressive symptoms that go completely unnoticed by adults. And studies show that internalizers, the kids who seem fine, are the least likely to be identified until a major breakdown occurs. Today, Ellis and Dr. Melillo open up about her childhood, her hidden OCD, the panic she hid for years, the anxiety, and the breakthrough moment when science and vulnerability collided. Let's go deep. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Hi. Thanks for having us. That was a great
Yeah.
introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us again, Ellis. I love this topic. You are a superstar. Dr. Melillo, wow, this is the irony, right? Treating your own child in many respects. So let's talk about why you started the Right Brain podcast. So before we dive into Ellis's story, this podcast you both built didn't come out of nowhere. There was a spark, a reason, a moment. And parents don't usually get this level of access to a father-daughter dynamic grounded in both science and lived experience. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Dr. Melillo, what was the true catalyst behind starting the Right Brain podcast? Whose idea was it originally, and what made you realize that your story with Ellis could help other families?
Yeah, she was actually the catalyst behind the podcast. And, I've spent my career, as a clinician in neurology and rehabilitation. And all three of my kids were very special and talented, but all of them had their own unique challenges. And so as a parent, I appreciated that from the very beginning, with doctors throwing out labels like ADHD and not really explaining what that meant. But, my two boys were more in the forefront of challenges, and Ellis never really was. As a child, she was really almost perfect. I mean, she just was, great. And, and her talent, her musical talent, was evident from the time she was born. I mean, literally, I think she could sing before she could speak. And then her songwriting ability emerged, which was just phenomenal. But a lot of the challenges, as you said, the idea of describing it as internalization, she internalized everything. And it wasn't until later on that we really understood the challenges and the OCD and the anxiety that she was going through. And she has taught me so much about that, so that I've been able to help other people. And there's so many other people, as you said, especially anxiety right now is probably the most prominent thing that we see in these more younger generations. And so, when she approached me about doing the podcast for her community, I was like, this is a great idea.
Wow. And that makes sense, and so much sense, because the power comes from the fact that it's both of you telling the story, not just the expert, not just the daughter, but the two together, which is really, really impactful. And now, this brings me full circle to you, Ellis. Let's talk about what it felt like to share your story publicly. So something you're doing that I think is incredibly brave and honestly rare is speaking publicly about anxiety and OCD and depression from the lens of someone who masked her symptoms flawlessly. Like your dad said, you were perfect. And girls especially are conditioned to perform to be perfect. So what made you finally feel ready to share this story publicly, and why with your father on a podcast for everyone to hear?
I think that I think moving to Nashville really helped, because I started working with all these people that I admired so much, and I kind of like noticed all these things in them that I struggled with. And I thought that was just like fascinating, that like the people that in my head I would think would have it all together because they like were successful or whatever, they still were struggling, maybe even worse than me at many times. And I think it just made me realize that like this is something that everyone needs to talk about, because we're all masking our symptoms and we're all just pretending we're okay, and that's not good, because that can lead to very bad things happening. So I just figured maybe we could start an open conversation, and if I have access to someone like my dad, which is incredibly rare, I figured I might as well, use it for good.
Dr. Melillo, let's talk about what she was like as a child, because you said she was close to perfect. So many parents listening. Well, no, he's right, because in contrast to your brothers, you were not presenting with symptoms, right? So hold on. Many parents listening look back with guilt, asking themselves, how did I not see it? And what's so compelling here is that even you, a world leader in brain development, has a daughter, or your daughter was silently suffering under your roof. So, Dr. Melillo, take us back. What was Ellis like as a child from your perspective? What early signs were there in hindsight, and what slipped past even you?
It's interesting looking back at the lens of, now, a PhD in brain development, basically, and looking back at that. From the very beginning, when she was born, she had this infection, and she had to stay in the NICU for two weeks and not be touched really by her mom or me, which now looking back, I know these are all red flags, these little things. But she came home, and from the beginning, her nonverbal communication was phenomenal, like eye contact, smiling, which now I realize is that right brain ability was so evident early on. But, from an early age, she also suffered from really bad motion sickness, and her eyes were, not even, and she had some problems with her oculomotor system. So her basic vestibular system, she had a little bit of a tremor as a child. And these were things I saw early on. But again, I was just developing a lot of my work, and there wasn't a lot of other research out there to put it into context. But I knew something was a little off there. But she, like I said, she sang. She was very, very bright early on. She, was a really great athlete and started playing soccer at a really high level at a young age. And she, her voice was amazing from an early age. She was just incredible. And she started, she was the impetus. She told me, can you get me a guitar because I want to start writing songs? And we didn't even know what that meant. And then when she was like 10 years old, she came down with these songs, but she never got in trouble in school. No one ever really said she had a learning disability, even though she was really struggling with reading and spelling. I mean, her handwriting was never great and her room was always a little messy. But, these were like fairly, she hid all of this stuff, and it was just really amazing. And it wasn't until later on when she really revealed what was going on and she couldn't really hold it in anymore that, I was able to really understand what was going on with her this whole time.
I think every parent just exhaled hearing that, because it shows even the experts can miss the internalizers like Ellis, right? Because she was an internalizer. She still is, probably. Now, Ellis, let's talk about how symptoms manifested through your adolescence. So you've talked about being a classic high-functioning kid, straightforward, responsible, on top of things, but internally, like your dad said, things were spiraling. So
Yeah.
how did your anxiety, your OCD, or your depressive tendencies actually show up in adolescence, and how did you manage to hide it until college?
I mean, I'm sure I didn't hide it as well as I think I did, but I mean, with OCD, it was like, especially when I was a kid, things multiple times, and I would have to like randomly jump, and like if I didn't jump the right way, then I'd have to redo it and do it over again, and it would like I would convince myself that like my family was going to die if I didn't do it the right way, and it would put me into this like spiral where I would freak out. And I think I had a lot of social anxiety. Like I'm a pretty outgoing person, but I think on the inside, even in sports and things like that, like going to practice, sometimes I would just have so much anxiety, like just going to be around all these people and overthinking things I say and that type of stuff. So I don't know. I think it kind of all was something I was sort of able to manage. But then when I got to college, I think all of the pressure kind of also made me start having a pretty bad eating disorder. And then everything kind of just, I don't know, came to light, I guess. It wasn't that
Yeah.
easy to hide anymore.
It wasn't easy to hide. And that's such an important framework for parents listening, because those behaviors look so subtle on the outside, right? But internally, you're suffering. And when you admit it and when you put it out there, there's no shame. Now it's just about healing, right? But that's the step of manifesting it into words that I have a problem and I need help, or admitting that perfection is overrated, right? Because it really is. Now, Dr. Melillo, the breakthrough moment. So every story like this has a moment when everything comes to surface, like she said, but yours had a scientific layer to it as well. So when you finally understood what Ellis was experiencing, what did you see from a brain development perspective? What were the patterns, the imbalances, the clues, that suddenly made sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew she was a big right brain dominant person. And I do know that, she struggled and was kind of probably borderline dyslexic, if not dyslexic, even though she hid it very well. Her spelling struggled. And so I knew that organizationally, I knew like being able to, sequence things and do it organized was a struggle. So I knew that was there. But a lot of my work and my research had been really geared towards looking at autism and ADHD and a left brain type of OCD. So, I was aware of a right brain dominant, left brain deficit in dyslexic kids and learning disabilities, but there was a lot of research coming out about in kids with left brain deficits or dyslexia. There was imaging showing what's called the salience network, which is a network that really makes us say, wow, this is important, pay attention. And that kids with dyslexia, that was blaring in the right brain, and it was causing this incredible stress response in their body. And, what I always knew and talk about is that, I tell parents that the more gifted your child is in an area, like when they show these like really high level gifts, there's usually a vulnerability for a weakness that they may be hiding.
Yeah.
And, and especially it played so much with her because she was so gifted in songwriting and singing at such an early age, like a savant level skill. But we didn't see the weakness, even though I should have known it, until it came out, until she couldn't really hide it anymore. But it made perfect sense to me. And then linking it with the eyes and with the motion sickness, all of it made perfect sense. And then I knew what to do was, how to be able to help her. And that was my mission from that point in time on.
Yeah. This is why your work is so transformative, because it connects emotions to neurology in a way that gives people tools, not shame. And I think Ellis, whether it's Ellis or whether it's anyone else listening with similar patterns, it's a relief because, again, the tools take away the shame. And I feel, in this particular scenario, God only gives you as much as you can handle, right? Never more. And I think, Ellis, you're blessed with having such a great mentor that you pick your parents for a reason. So you chose dad before you even got here. And it makes perfect sense.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it's the truth. So now
Yeah.
let's talk about the healing process, Alice. So when people hear rewiring the brain, they think it's overnight, but healing is messy, it's emotional, and without a doubt layered. So what did the actual healing process look like for you once your dad stepped in from both the emotional and scientific side? What was, if you could put it into words, the hardest part, and what was the most relieving?
I think I'm still like healing, everyone always is still working on themselves, but I think the biggest step was kind of like laying it out all on the table. It's been very helpful doing this podcast because I feel like every time we do an episode, there's like more that we understand about each other and that he can help me with. But, when I go to his office and use the brain driver and red light lenses and red lasers and sound therapy and light therapy and all of that is very helpful. Like when I leave, I feel so much better, and it's mixed with a little bit of chiropractic in it. And yeah, the consistency of doing that, mixed with, being able to be honest with yourself and open about what you're feeling, which is something that I'm still working on. But it's like every time I kind of open up a new door, you kind of start to heal that a little bit more.
Yeah, you just described the journey so many young adults are silently on, except you're giving them language for it. It's exactly what, you just put it into words, but you are now a vessel, right? And you're an example to a lot of other people listening and watching right now. Now, let's talk about advice for parents and teens. So listening to both of you, this conversation will change families. So let's give them a moment they can really take with them. So for parents raising high functioning kids right now who seem fine, and for young adults who are silently struggling, what is one thing you both wish people knew sooner? Dr. Melillo, you go first.
The fact that, as you said, especially with these right brain dominant, like I said, when we look at behavioral issues, the externalizers, kids that might be super hyperactive or super impulsive, or kids that might be on, the spectrum, those are more obvious, but maybe even more potentially dangerous are the internalizers. And these are kids that, generally don't cause much of a problem in school and that everybody seems to like, but they are overwhelmed by their own emotions and other people's emotions. And they may hold that in completely. They might have some learning disability struggles, and everybody, of course, is focused on the learning aspect and academics. And they might really be incredibly good at other things like athletics or dance or, again, just being friendly or music or art. And people will look at that and go, wow, they must be doing well because they're so talented in this area, not understanding everything that's underneath them and how this might lead to, this terrible anxiety that they feel. That's why what Ellis is doing with the podcast is so brave, because these are people that their biggest fear, the right brain emotion of embarrassment, shame, guilt, ultimately rejection, and this is what we find in her community, these people that are driven by these right brain talents to perform, but yet at the same time, their biggest fear is being rejected by an audience and, and being embarrassed or shameful or feeling guilty. And so for her to be able to step out there and be vulnerable, it's one of the hardest things for them to do. But if you have a child that is just very, very emotional and doesn't always, and especially at home and not outside, really look at it, because they might really have these things underlying. And these are people that if you don't deal with this down the road, they could actually, even harm themselves.
Wow. So now, Ellis, I'd love to hear from you. What's the one thing you wish people knew sooner?
I think the people that I was just kind of piggybacking off what my dad said, like the people that are maybe the most people pleasing or outgoing or constantly trying to be the funny ones or the life of the party or just always trying to make people feel comfortable are kind of the ones that are feeling that exact opposite on the inside. And those people are a lot of times the ones that will always be checking on their friends, but they're kind of the ones that need to be checked on, because you're like, oh, well, they always seem so fun and happy and whatever. And there's a reason that they're always putting that out there, because there's something inside that they're trying to mask, I mean, people can be happy, but
it's
but
that
I think it's
overcompensation.
the overcompensation. I think those are the people that sometimes you think you don't have to check on, and they're probably the ones you have to check on the most.
Yeah, but well said. And that right there is the heart of this episode and the purpose of the Right Brain podcast, which I love. I love the title. I love everything. Well, is there anything you would like to add, Dr. Melillo, before we sign off?
Yeah, the thing to understand is that, we always talk about mental health and psychology and again, sharing and talking. But what really one of the main focuses of is that this can be changed, that the brain can be changed, that we can take away these vulnerabilities. Dyslexia can be completely corrected. These learning disabilities can go away. Right brain people can learn as well as anybody, but without taking away the gift, so that they can still be these musical talents or these athletes or all of these things without that level of anxiety. They're always going to have a little of it, and that's partly what drives them and motivates them. But these things they don't just have to be accepted, which is what everybody's told. They don't just need medication. There are things that can be done to literally shift the brain and keep it that way. And as Ellis says, the brain is very dynamic, so that you may need to do things just like exercising and keeping yourself in shape and, keeping your brain in its best level. But, there are things that can be done, and it's not just about talk therapy and accepting it. It's about literally changing the brain without losing the talent.
And that rewiring happens very, very effectively in your office. And I love that she alluded to, she loves when Ellis, going to dad's work is very therapeutic. And I love that you have access to that. And I also, what I admire the most is that, Dr. Melillo, you're not quick to just prescribe. You're not, hey, take this pill, take that pill. And that's what a lot of doctors are doing right now. And especially with moms that are not really informed. But I love that you are there to change the mechanism and to rewire versus put a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly. Well, medication, sometimes can be very helpful to manage a symptom, but I'm not about managing the symptom. I'm about why the symptom's there. What is the root cause? Everything we do is about root cause. And I know that with my work in my centers, we understand that root cause of all of these different neurobehavioral disorders. And I think another fascinating thing, if people have a chance to listen to the Right Brain podcast, is that, we're interviewing some of the most talented people in the world. Some of the people, like Ellis said, that you would never think have a problem. It's like that story of the celebrity or that great musician, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. Why did they kill themselves? Why did they turn to drugs? Wouldn't they be happy? They were so famous and everybody loved them. And, why did they have these struggles? And it really is fascinating to hear all of these people and their struggles, and they're coming on and being vulnerable just so that they can help other people, just like what Ellis is doing. So it's really amazing.
Wow. Ellis, Dr. Melillo, thank you for this truly intimate right brain conversation. And I've learned a lot. And for those listening, if today's discussion resonated with you or someone you love, make sure you check out, like Dr. Melillo said, the Right Brain podcast for that deeper dive into brain development, emotional health, and lived experience. Thank you both so much for coming on today and sharing your story.
Thank you for having us.
All right, to follow Ellis, you can find her directly on the gram. Super talented. Check her out at @velvetellis_. And of course, Dr. Melillo is on the gram as well at Dr. Robert Melillo. And you can go directly to his website at drrobertmelillo.com and book your consultation. And as always, to the beautiful tri-state area, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay tuned. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tortora Promotions, specializing in white glove digital marketing, social media management, professional videography, and PR services. Based in New York City and partnering with hundreds of businesses nationwide, they deliver proven strategies that bring more customers through the door. If your old marketing methods aren't keeping up, Tortora Promotions can step in to help you stay ahead. Grow your brand and drive real results. Reach out today and follow them on Instagram at Tortora Promotions. Your business deserves it.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In CO2 Lifts Going Deep Express segment, Dr. Grant Stevens, a board-certified plastic surgeon and founder of Marina Plastic Surgery, Marina Med Spa, and Sun Valley Aesthetics, breaks down how the CO2 Lift Pro treatment works and how the CO2 Lift V is helping both men and women enhance their intimate wellness.
The carboxy therapy increases the oxygen and the oxygenation of skin. It also increases the blood supply and the hydration. In other words, it makes the skin more plump, more hydrated, water. It's like the difference of a raisin and a grape. So a raisin is just a grape that's dehydrated. Well, our skin can become kind of like a raisin. And when we use the carboxy, we actually increase the oxygen and the hydration. So there's an immediate effect right then and there, even if you use it at home by yourself. On the other hand, we're doing it on patients before and after procedures. So let's say they're having a skin pen or a hydrofacial or even some lasers and energy-based technologies that we could run through. But we'll treat them before, like once a week, and then after once a week with the carboxy therapy. And it accelerates the recovery. The patients feel better. They look better. It shortens the recovery. It's a wonderful addition. Now, let's talk about the females. We have biopsies to show the improvement in the lubrication and the hydration of the vaginal mucosa, and also the outside of the vagina, the perineum, the labia, and so forth. The overall appearance is plumper, and I don't mean bigger, but it looks healthier, looks younger, and we have women of all ages asking for it and doing it. Now, back to men. A number of men have asked me about it. I'm not a specialist in erectile dysfunction by any means. However, men have been taking home the product that's for the penis and reporting to me heightened sex, longer erections, faster erections, and all sorts of things. Again, not my area of expertise. That's usually urologists, but certainly the guys that come to Manland, they hear about it, and they hear about it from their wives and girlfriends. That's where I don't make a big to-do of it. But when they ask me, I tell them how to go online and get it. We sell it on our online store at Sun Valley Aesthetics, and it's very popular for the men and the women, and not just the private parts, the face, the neck, the décolletage, the area on the chest between the breasts, that area that gets crepey. Also, the arms, the knees, the elbows. I'm telling you, I always kid Lana, the founder. And I have no interest in the company whatsoever. I have no financial interest if you get it or not. However, I kid her and tell her you need to have a bathtub version so we can just get in the bathtub and go all the way up.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Today's Elevated Experiences segment is brought to you by MTK Group NY and the Travel Club, and of course, our partners at Classic Travel, the gold standard for curated concierge-level journeys. Right now, we're going to dive straight into the heart of white glove wanderlust, the new rules of elevated travel coming in 2026, because luxury travel has officially evolved. Today's elite traveler isn't chasing splashy, Instagrammable moments. They're craving privacy, personalization, and presence. In fact, global luxury travel is expected to rise more than 6% in 2026, and the new status symbol isn't the penthouse suite. It's seclusion, deep cultural immersion, and bespoke planning. Which brings us to our second headliner, where the world's wealthiest are going in 2026 and the expert fixers behind those once-in-a-lifetime itineraries. And no one understands that better than my two guests. First up, we have Camila Zevallos. She is a powerhouse, mother of two young, beautiful girls, owner of Freedom Midtown, one of Manhattan's most vibrant Peruvian Mexican restaurants, and the MVP travel concierge designer at Classic Travel. She's the woman high-achieving mamas turn to when they want a luxurious escape that feels effortless without losing 30 hours of their life researching. And joining her is the amazing Lance Stamps, the vice president of marketing at classictravel.com. Lance oversees the strategic curation of one of the world's most exclusive luxury hotel collections, offering elite travelers VIP status, exclusive amenities, and unmatched access. He also works directly with Classic Travel's members advisor team to design bespoke itineraries. Think private jet golf tours, yacht charters, multi-generational escapes, and bucket list cultural events, all crafted with precision and personalization. Together, these two represent the future of elevated concierge-level travel. Welcome to the show, superstars.
No, thank you.
All right, Camilla, I'm going to start with you. So one of the biggest shifts, Camilla, in luxury travel is that what Virtuoso calls quiet luxury in motion. And privacy has become the new status symbol. And families are really choosing curated concierge-led journeys instead of mass market luxury. So what are the new rules of elevated travel for 2026? And what are families, especially moms, asking for right now?
In 2026, elevated luxury travel has shifted from excess to intentionality. Families, especially moms, aren't asking for, let's say, more amenities. They're asking for more ease. It's reducing the mental load. And I feel like we can, the best thing that we can offer moms nowadays is not having to think. So that's when we come on board. This is when we give them that break and just design everything about family rhythms, give that support, all those experiences that they're expecting without having to be exhausting.
Beautifully said. Exhausting is the word. And yes, it feels like luxury is becoming more intimate and more intentional and, more importantly, more human. So what you said is extremely important. And that's what moms are looking for. Now, Lance, Virtuoso's 2024-2025 forecast shows a surge in demand for no worries journeys, meaning the trip feels seamless from the moment the traveler walks out their front door. So from your vantage point, designing bespoke itineraries, how have expectations fundamentally changed amongst elite travelers, and what defines true white glove travel today?
Well, white glove service today, I think the most important is really knowing your clients. And building a relationship with your clients, because you have to know their needs in order to provide the service, right? And one of those is knowing is for us is solving the problems before they even exist, curating those experiences that are impossible to get online, whether it's visiting a family winery where you're actually meeting the owners of the winery. These are things that you can't access online. So our personal relationships that we built over the years allows us to provide this level of service to our clients. And that's really one of the most important things that we provide. And then the client should really never really see or feel all the hard work that we do behind the scenes. All they should see is the final results of a flawless trip.
And there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes. I know this for a fact, but what you just said, that level of seamlessness is exactly what today's travel craves. You captured it perfectly. Now, Camilla, stats are showing right now that 78% of parents and 77% of moms say trip planning is extremely stressful. And nearly 70% of moms handle all the logistics alone.
Yes.
That's a full-time job before the vacation even begins.
Yes.
So as a working mom and a travel designer, and an incredible one at that, what pain points do high-achieving moms and families face today? And how does concierge travel solve those challenges?
Yeah, so just like you said, high achieving moms are juggling careers, home logistics, emotional labor, scheduling for everyone. So planning often feels like a second job. The biggest challenges for moms are decision fatigue and fearing that things are gonna go wrong without a backup plan. We remove all of that. We handle every detail. We design around family dynamics. We build in those safety nets, and we ensure that the trip supports every need, especially hers too, because she's like the brain behind it, right? So it's not just the kids, it's the mom, and giving her that piece to continue to make that trip exceptional for the family when they go on. So we take a lot of what used to be stress and we turn it into actual care for her and the family.
And that's exactly the emotional labor most families never talk about, right? And your solution sounds like a lifesaver.
Yes.
Now, Lance, travelers at the high end aren't buying hotels anymore, right? They're buying access. And after hours of cultural experiences and private villas and yacht charters, Michelin level dining in secret locations is a real thing. And all the things money alone can't secure is what you have access to. So why are concierge travel design and membership models like MTK Group's Travel Club exploding right now? What gap in the luxury market are you solving?
It's really building a relationship with someone that knows all the all the different components of the family, the likes, dislikes, even the personal relationships between the family members is important, because we'll have an extended family going, and we know the sister-in-law can't be next to the mother-in-law. So even though they're on a trip, it's knowing all of those details that really make the trips memorable. And sometimes we're putting out fires between family members. So it's all of those different components, and having access to the advisor basically 24/7. And that's a trend, whether it's in travel, a doctor, people have a concierge doctor now. So that's really the trend in the luxury market, is to have a group of advisors that are handling every aspect of that part of your life.
Exactly. You're bringing clarity, trust, and access to a world that became far too complicated. Now, Camilla, the data shocked me. The fastest rising elite destinations for 2026, they include Iceland, Antarctica, Norway, Egypt, and even Japan.
Yes.
So what destinations or trip styles, Camilla, are trending most with your luxury clients, and why are they gravitating to these new locations?
Okay, you're so spot on. For 2026, a lot of what I'm seeing right now is so families are really, I feel like now, are choosing those destinations that feel restorative, culturally rich, like you said, Japan, and not logistically simple. All of our travelers, at least like well-traveled clients, have already done all the usual suspects, South of France and, Italy, all that. So I feel like, for example, Japan offers that like structured serenity and unforgettable family experience. You have New Zealand, it offers that like nature and wellness into it. I was just in Patagonia. And then you have a lot of like, let's say Africa, which is multi-generational, once in a lifetime bucket list. People are not really looking for that very elevated, top tier hotels, which are great, but I feel like they're looking for the new luxury, which is nature, comfort, reconnecting with themselves and families.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that because it's no longer let's go to a hot beach and a hot climate and just
Yeah.
bake in the sun, right? Staying cool is actually the new hot.
Yes.
You just you just pay
We're all going into the unknown now, and like you said, Japan, New Zealand, all of these like newer and further destinations. So it takes someone like us to get all the work done because it's not easy.
Now, Lance, Virtuoso also notes a rise in slow travel, in wellness journeys. This is what you and Camilla have been talking about, in those multi-generational escapes and really celebration trips. And when you look at them, affluent travelers aren't racing anymore. They're savoring. So from private jets to yacht charters to multi-stop global routes, what travel styles are defining the 2026 year that's coming in for your elite clientele?
Again, I think you hit all of the right key points. I mean, it's slow travel where clients really want to go and disconnect. I've got a lot of clients going to Bhutan where they really want to just disconnect from the world and, get a different perspective on life. Wellness is going to be a huge trend going forward. A lot of our clients are, I think the hardest part for a client, and so again, we have a lot of different types of clients, right? We have clients that have traveled, you could say, luxury their whole life. That's one client. And then I've got a lot of new clients that are new, you may say new money, people that have worked their whole life. They've sold their company for millions and now they're ready to travel and explore the world. I love them because, they really haven't been as many places that you would think. They're successful, but they were so busy, say, building their company that they didn't have a chance or the time to travel. And now they have time and money. And introducing them to these great experience. Wellness is, like I said, is huge going forward. If you can get a client into a wellness retreat, 9 times out of 10, that becomes part of their yearly routine. They'll go back to Shaw Wellness and they'll get the treatments. They kind of reset their bodies for the year. So I see that as being a huge trend going forward and continue. Not only wellness, it could be cosmetic, holistic. It's just all about reinventing themselves or rejuvenating themselves like once a year at these amazing spas around the world. Multi-gen travel, that's always been a big part of travel. But I think now it's a little bit less than people love to stay in luxury hotels, and that's not going to go away, but they really like to be immersed in the destination. So you see a lot more parents taking their kids on trips where they're actually going into the communities and doing, volunteer work when they're on vacation. So I think the trend is, yes, we're traveling, we're staying in luxury accommodations, but then they want to bring something home that's meaningful, that's kind of elevated their personal life as well, whether it's, restoring themselves at a spa or bringing home something from, an experience that they've experienced in the destination that's maybe made them a better person when they return. And I think that's really what travel's about, opening their eyes to different possibilities, different cultures, different religions, and all of those things.
There's something profoundly luxurious about slowing down, right, Lance? And you just articulated that so beautifully. And the fact that they're putting their trust into that next chapter of their lives in you and Camilla and in Classic Travel speaks volumes. Now, Camilla, your itineraries are known for being emotionally intelligent, matching a client's lifestyle, their pace, and their values. That's what we're talking about, the new luxury standard. So can you share an example of a recent itinerary you designed that embodies these new rules and advice for families wanting a more meaningful, elevated, stress-free trip, so to speak?
Yes, absolutely. I actually love that you mentioned Japan because it's one of my recent trips and I loved it very much. It was a 10-day trip. I called it Rest and Reconnect. And it was a journey in Japan for a very high achieving mom of 3 boys. And it captured all of those like rules of like luxury. She obviously needed mental rest, and her family, boys and husband, wanted a lot of adventure and activities. So I try to build a dual itinerary for her. In the mornings for her, I did, women only onsens. I did a breathwork guides. I did tea time, lots of like sleep therapy and things that were specifically catered for her, while the boys explore anime studios. They did samurai lessons and a bunch of stuff. And towards the end of the afternoon, I combined activities that were for both of them, such as Kyoto garden visits and picnics and stuff like that. Towards the end of the trip, the husband asked me to create a vow renewal with a voice. And it was a beautiful thing because it wasn't just like a trip. It was healing for her. She got a lot of herself back in the mornings, and then being able to connect with the boys towards the end of the afternoon. So it was a beautiful trip, and I loved it.
Vow renewal. Wow. I mean, that is the definition of an
10
elevated
years.
experience.
Yes.
Lance, this is where I love to end, with intention, because the world's wealthiest travelers, like you said, aren't booking trips, they're booking transformations. So if you could give one golden rule to anyone planning an elevated luxury travel experience in the coming year, what would it be?
It's really partnering. It's almost like it's finding the right supplier or the right agent for you, whether it's the right concierge company. If you're a luxury traveler, then you should have either a concierge company or a dedicated advisor. I remember once a client called the office, and he said, I'm going to be, we had a great conversation over the phone, and he says, I want to do lunch. And I'm like, well, do we really need to do lunch? And he's like, I'm going to be spending a lot of money with you over the next 2 years. Yes, I want to meet you in person. So a lot of times we can't necessarily meet them in person. But I think when you're a luxury traveler, again, it's all about finding that trusted person that you can trust, that you can, because if you trust a person, you're able to give them a little bit more information about yourself. You're able to open up. And I think that's key. The golden rule is the client shouldn't have to think about they shouldn't have to think about things, and they shouldn't have to remind you, or they shouldn't have to worry about it. We should be able to anticipate their needs before they even know what they want. And that's what we do on our end. Is we once we get to know a client, we anticipate their needs so that we can take care of all of these situations before they even happen.
There you go. The golden rule is to find a concierge designer that meets your needs. I love it.
Exactly. And like Lance said, that does not have to remind you. I feel like if a client, a true client, has to remind you of things, then it's no longer luxury. You should be able to develop their trip without having to even say anything. A lot of what I do is I build a profile for clients, and I write everything. I know their car seats, I know the ages, I know the allergies, I know their preferences. It's very, very detailed. So I feel like they shouldn't even, I know, for example, that the children eat at 5:30 o'clock every day. So all of the restaurant reservations are done for that time without they even telling me, because I've already learned to read through the years that is their preferred time of like dinner time. So I know already. So now they don't even have to worry about it or even ask me or spend that extra time saying anything, because I already know that is what they typically do.
Incredible.
No, that's true. They have, and families, if you're doing multi-gen families, they have rituals that they do. One of my clients, they have the night before they all depart, they have it's a given that they're going to have a family dinner with everyone together, and then throughout the trip they can dine alone if they wish. But that's kind of the rule of their trip, is they all like to dine together on that last night of a trip. So yeah, Camila's right. Just having access to all of their likes and dislikes is really where it has to be. We have to know all these things in order to curate the perfect trip.
Yeah, this is a full-time job, and it's done with intentionality and expertise and personalization, and that's really the future of travel. And with that, we are at the end of our date, my dear friends. Camilla and Lance, thank you both for elevating us right now, and that was masterful.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
No, thank you very much.
For everyone listening, if you're craving a curated, effortless concierge design journey, definitely visit classictravel.com. You can check them out on the gram at Classic Travel Service, Classic Travel Lance, at Camilla Zavalos, and of course, a huge thank you to the MTK Group New York and their travel club, your passport to private aviation, white glove services, and elevated experiences designed for the extraordinary traveler. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Elevated Experiences segment brought to you by MTK Group New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
The Kelly Williams Show is brought to you by Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events. Tune in and turn on your happy. Kelly Williams is full of energy and incredible guests. Watch her anytime, free programming on Your Home TV network, and do follow her on social media for a chance to win monthly prizes. Check out The Kelly Williams Show on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Westbridge Academy in Essex County, where students are seen, heard, and understood. Neurodiverse K-12 students, many facing ADHD, anxiety, depression, or aggression, discover strength through connection. With compassionate educators, therapeutic support, and the latest technology, students can master academics and go further, exploring music production, financial and automotive literacy, social media awareness, and wellness. Visit westbridgeacademy.org to learn more.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands and Crunchy. Now, when it comes to clean beauty, there's one question we have to ask. Are these products tested on animals? Well, with Crunchy, the answer is a resounding no. Never. Not ever. Crunchy is proudly Leaping Bunny certified, the gold standard in cruelty-free assurance. That means absolutely zero animal testing at any stage of formulation or manufacturing. And yes, that even includes the brushes and accessories. This is a brand built by animal lovers for conscious consumers who refuse to compromise. Every ingredient is vetted with intention. Every product is crafted with integrity, and every swipe, blend, and application supports a beauty industry that values compassion as much as performance. So when you choose Crunchy, you're choosing makeup and skincare that's clean, safe, high-performing, and 100% cruelty-free. Because beauty should never come at the expense of our furry friends. Crunchy, conscience, clean, compelling. That was the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Skin by Sari. Nationally recognized injector Sari Katz is redefining cosmetic treatments with an approach that's subtle, precise, and confidence-driven. Whether you're new to injectables or looking for an expert touch, Sari creates results that enhance your natural features. Never mask them. Discover what personalized aesthetics should feel like. To learn more, visit skinbysari.com or follow @skinbysari on Instagram.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Suspera, the gold standard breakthrough in hyperpigmentation correction, trusted by dermatologists worldwide. And today's guest is a powerhouse in pigment science. Dr. Jane Yu is a Korean-American dual board-certified cosmetic dermatologist and Mohs surgeon and a clinical assistant professor of dermatology at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai right here in New York City. She's trained at MIT, Harvard, Einstein, and Yale, and she's the founder of the Clinical Research Center of New York, where she leads clinical trials for top cosmetic, pharmaceutical, and energy device companies. She's on the Skin Cancer Foundation as a spokesperson advocating for better UV protection, sits on major scientific boards, champions diversity in dermatology, and because she's a force of nature, is also a 6-star Abbott World Marathon Majors finisher. Oh my gosh. Today, she's going to join us to decode the new era of pigmentation care, what's trending, what's changing, and how innovations like Suspera are transforming outcomes for all skin tones. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You
Great
are.
to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. You are our expert on the microphone today, and I can't wait to dig in. So, Dr. Yu, your practice sits at the intersection of high-level clinical research and real-world cosmetic dermatology in one of the most diverse cities on the planet, right here in New York City. And that combination gives you a frontline view of skin behavior across ethnicities, lifestyles, and even genetics. You run one of the most respected cosmetic dermatology and clinic research practices in the city. What conditions do you treat most often, and how does the diversity of your patient population shape your approach?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, New York gives me an incredibly diverse range of patients. So I see every type of pigmentation from melasma to PIH to sun damage. And because everyone's skin behaves differently, I customize treatments pretty carefully. So what works for one skin type might not work for another skin type. And what may work for one skin tone may irritate another. So focusing on a lot of gentle, evidence-based approaches and long-term plans are essential for treatment.
That makes a lot of sense because New York diversity requires New York dermatology.
Yes, and very personalized care too.
Yeah, and it's not a one size fits all, and you're clearly
No.
you're clearly tailoring care on a whole different level.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're also watching a cultural moment unfold. Social media filters, heat exposure, stress, perimenopause, and even pollution are fueling an epidemic of pigmentation concerns. And dermatologists across the country are reporting record numbers. So, what trends or patterns are you seeing right now around pigment concerns, melasma, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, or general skin health changes, particularly in such a diverse city?
I think you just really hit the nail on the head because we're looking not only at internal factors, we're looking at external stressors as well. You mentioned the perimenopause, you mentioned, the UV, but lately I'm seeing a lot more post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation or PIH, especially from acne and cosmetic procedures done outside dermatology offices. People are so much more aware of pigment thanks to the makeup-free trend, right? Patients want more non-hydroquinone options that they can use for the long term, and they're realizing that skin health and pigment are connected. So you talk about skin barrier issues and inflammation that always makes the discoloration worse, and you try to think of strategies to be able to overcome those.
And the hydroquinone free is such a powerful talking point because not all hyperpigmentation correctors are hydroquinone free. And we know that this particular company's Hespera is clinically researched and clinically verified, which puts my mind at ease. And what you just said is powerful and honestly reassuring because it helps people understand their skin isn't just acting up randomly. There are clear patterns and causes.
No, yes, exactly. And the other thing is that it's such a gentle product and it's easy for people to use, either men or women, and associates with all different ages.
And melasma especially is emotionally taxing. It's chronic, hormonally driven, and just notoriously stubborn. And patients often describe it as the condition that controls them, not the other way around. So what is your overall treatment philosophy when approaching melasma and complex pigmentation disorders that tend to be chronic and difficult to manage?
Well, when it comes to melasma or any other chronic pigment, it's like a long-term relationship. It's a long-term condition. It's all about controlling the inflammation. So there is redness underneath, repairing the skin barrier, and keeping the skin calm. Avoid anything really too aggressive. So like lasers and peels can actually backfire on these patients. So you have to be really careful that you don't get post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, especially on your patients who are a little bit darker skinned. So slow and steady progress is always better. Sometimes you backtrack, sometimes you move forward. So it's always a lot of hand-holding with these patients.
I love that. I mean, you're treating the person, not just the pigment. And that mindset alone can change someone's healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know so many people come to you feeling defeated. They've tried lasers and peels and prescriptions and brightening creams, and even TikTok told them to try, and nothing worked. When a patient comes to you after multiple failed treatments and feels like they've tried everything, where do you begin to reset their journey?
Well, I start by simplifying everything. We stop whatever is irritating the skin and just do a complete reset. Then also double checking the diagnosis is very smart because half the time when you think it's melasma, it's not. It might be post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. There might be some mixed pigment. There might be epidermal pigment. There might be dermal pigment. And from there, we have to develop a protocol that they can follow. That's the really number one thing. Something that they can follow and to be able to set realistic expectations, because all of this is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and that's a relief for people to hear because there is a roadmap even after setbacks. Now, Suspera has gained a global following because it works differently. Cysteamine is incredibly powerful, but in the right hands, it's transformative. And you're at the forefront of those protocols. How have you incorporated the Suspera system into your pigment protocols, and what types of patients have you seen respond best?
Well, I use Suspera a lot in my pigment protocols because it's both gentle and really effective. Again, use it for men and women of all ages. A cysteamine plus isobiotic amide fits well into long-term pigment management. It works well for melasma, for PIH, and especially patients for which hydroquinone didn't work or people who are too scared to use hydroquinone. It's great for Fitzpatrick's 3 through 6 because it doesn't cause the rebound pigment. And so I think it's gentle enough product that can be used by anyone.
It's science meeting precision, really. And the fact that it's suitable for all skin tones makes it a true game changer.
Yes, for sure.
Now, New York's climate is extreme. It's extreme, right? There's scorching summers, there's freezing winters, and pigment often flares with heat, UV, and stress. Seasonal timing is really everything in this equation. So as the seasons are changing, what adjustments do you typically recommend to protect pigment progress and maintain healthy, radiant skin year-round?
Well, as seasons change, the plan changes too. Fall and winter are great for making progress because you have less sunlight. However, spring and summer are more about protection, what we achieved. So daily sunscreen, I can't emphasize that enough, being on the Skin Cancer Foundation. So that is always something that is non-negotiable with me and melasma patients or patients who are coming in for post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. If you don't have sunscreen, you can't see me, right? Because again, the sunscreen is the most essential factor in the treatment protocol. That's your staple. So you're going to go always back to the sunscreen. Reapplication too. Avoiding heat. We know that heat can also trigger the melasma, and keeping the inflammation in check. So this consistent maintenance routine will prevent recurrence. And so like I always say, sometimes we're going backtracking and sometimes we're moving forward, but hopefully we're moving forward in the right steps.
Well, that's such a valuable breakdown because people don't really realize how much the seasons change their skin chemistry, right?
Yeah. And it's a long, it's a long journey. It's not a sprint. I would say it's a marathon, right? So when you talk about melasma, little changes can mean a lot. So again, it's just staying the course.
All right. Now, before we sign off, because we are at the end of our date, I want you to give me a little bit of insight into the world of artificial intelligence and how it's helping you advance your practice.
Of course. So I am a huge proponent of AI, and I think one of the game changers is being able to utilize energy-based devices, lasers that are able to pick up different types of pigment, whether it's soil lenticels or PIH or other benign lesions. And so with these AI smart lasers, you can actually target the right type of pigment, even if you have someone who's not really experienced utilizing the laser, right? So the laser will actually be able to pick up on the pigment that it needs to target and avoid the pigment it doesn't. So I think that's where AI is going to be a game changer here.
Boy, you got a lot of tools in that toolbox, Dr. Yu. Now, we are at the end, and I can't thank you enough because this has been incredible. I learned so much. Thank you for sharing your expertise and really giving our audience a truly elevated understanding of pigmentation and modern dermatology. You are quite the expert on the microphone.
Thank you so much.
Ladies, gentlemen, if you want to learn more, you can follow her directly on the gram at JaneUMD. You could visit her on her website at janeumd.com, or you could head to beautytechderm.com and check out her YouTube channel for tons of incredible videos and information at JaneUMD PLLC 8080. I'm going to repeat that one, JaneUMD PLLC 8080. And of course, today's Better, Brighter You segment is brought to you by Suspera, the clinically proven system trusted by dermatologists around the world for targeted pigment correction. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Suspera, If skin discoloration is making it hard to find your Zen, Cispera can help. Stubborn pigmentation, dark spots, and uneven skin tone concerns go beyond the surface, affecting both confidence and self-expression. In a sea of skincare choices, Cispera stands apart. Backed by science and trusted by dermatologists worldwide, Cispera is powered by the advanced cysteamine isobonic amide complex, delivering clinically proven results and effectively targeting mild to persistent discoloration while restoring the skin's natural glow. Unlike harsh treatments, Cispera is formulated for all skin types, including sensitive areas, ensuring visible improvements without irritation. Whether pigmentation is a new concern or a long-standing struggle, Cispera works in harmony with the skin to bring balance, clarity, and renewed confidence. Cispera is science-driven skincare for confidence that shines. Find your skin zen and restore your glow with Cispera today by heading to Cispera.com.
We are at the end of our date, my dear friends. That's a wrap, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Remember to join me right here on A Moment of Zen every Saturday, or you could head to amomentofzen.com for live listening links and episode downloads in your city. Also remember that we're live on Traverse TV, our OTA partners, Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. On our YouTube channel at Zen Sams, we upload the episodes Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on Your Home TV, digital streaming platform that's worldwide family-friendly distribution. You could head directly to our channel. No apps necessary, no downloads needed. mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.